Welcome to Illuminati Silver. We tell you the truth about silver. Today is Monday the 19th of October 2020. And yesterday we published part 1 of COVID-19, Brexit, US elections, gold and silver prices, where we discussed with Greg his views on these subjects. And in case you haven't heard part 1, we've placed a link in the description box below. Now, we ran out of time and only managed really to discuss COVID-19. And so today we're playing the second half of the interview where we cover the US elections, Brexit, and their potential impact on gold and silver. So here goes. Well, talking about change, Greg, November the 3rd. Just over 2 weeks away, we have the general or presidential election in the United States. We are seeing, obviously, on the mainstream media that Joe Biden is some roughly 10 points ahead of President Trump. And even in those states which really determine the outcome of the election, the polls are now beginning to suggest that Biden is ahead in all of them, or if not ahead, equal in some. President Trump, I think, the last report I saw, was not ahead in any of them. So how do you see the election panning out, and do you think the polls are accurate, bearing in mind how wrong they were last time?
I think polls are so easily guided by clever phraseology of the questions. First, you need to ask whose side the pollsters are on as to how accurate it will be. Despite the noise from the media, there does seem to be a fairly high level of very vociferous support from organizations like Fox and Breitbart, who are making a great deal of noise in backing Trump. It is hard to tell which side the actual pollsters are coming from. I do fear the consequences if Trump loses. And the reason I say that is not because I am a Trump supporter or opposed to him, but I think he will lash about him so energetically. And this leads me to think that Trump could act incredibly irresponsibly out of personal self-interest if he doesn't win. And this will be incredibly damaging to America and to the volatility of the economics of America. And thus, if that were to happen, and I do so hope it doesn't, there is absolutely no point in trying to speculate as to what will happen with gold or silver between now and possibly the middle of December, because it is dependent on this total volatility of the potential for a president to try to hang on to office when he has patently lost it. Very difficult and dangerous time.
Yeah, of course, you're missing out the fact that Trump might win, in which case...
No, I said I fear.
Yes.
What will happen if he loses?
Right, but if he wins, what do you think could happen to gold and silver prices?
I think money will go into the economy rather than into gold and silver prices, and I don't think it will have a huge amount of effect.
Right, and then the final part of our discussion, Greg, other geopolitical events, particularly because we're living it now, and that's Brexit and its potential impact on the European Union and also our trading relationship with the United States.
Our trading relationship with the United States is far more stable than the media would like to report. If you look back over the last century, we have had probably one of the best relationships of any country in the world with America. We have always ended up working together. I think if Trump is re-elected, that is a certainty. I think if Biden is elected, there may be a little bit of fluctuation, but not a great deal. The the only area that affects America is the number of Irish in America and the way in which they have misled America regarding the degrees of terrorism and how it comes about. And America has had a need to buy those extra few votes in their political system by meddling in Ireland. In many ways, catastrophically, but in some ways, to the benefit of peace. So I don't think that whoever gets in will damage the real relationship between the two countries. We have been very closely allied for a long time, but one must always remember some of the most vociferous arguments and toxic arguments are within families. Yes, we'll fight the Americans verbally on all sorts of things, but at the end of the day, we will work in each other's best interest. I believe. I also hope. But if you look around the world at the moment, the levels of dissent between countries are actually very dangerous. We have China putting on major military exercises in the China Sea and in the straits between China and Taiwan. We have several serious conflicts, some that have broken out into open warfare in what used to be the USSR in its constituency parts, now that they have regained their liberty from the communist control of Russia itself. We have Russia desperately trying to re-establish the era of Stalin, which amazingly many Russians seem to have forgotten, cost but Russian people between 30 and 50 million of their citizens. But Putin seems to wish to go back in history and back to those dark days. Is this because he has now made his massive fortune and having become possibly in the top 5 richest men in the world, whether he as an oligarch sees himself as the new Tsar of Russia and wishes to expand the territory to its former glory? Then we have open warfare in Syria that has been going on for many years. We have difficult regimes in Iraq and Iran. Afghanistan is a festering mess. Yemen, we are talking of potentially millions being caught up in starvation and continued misery. We have elections in Africa, and every time I study any of the elections in Africa, Ghana at the moment, Guinea, etc., they are all seemingly based on racism. There doesn't seem to be anywhere, except perhaps the Indian subcontinent, that is quite so staggeringly racist as Africa, where it is tribe versus tribe, different ethnic groups, and civil wars or disagreements on a military and terrorist scale just below the level of civil wars seem to be breaking out. When you solve one, 2 more start. It is a very volatile political scene on a worldwide basis at the moment. And just to add to the mix, Japan has decided that it wishes to dump literally millions of tons of radioactive treated water into the Pacific from Fukushima. And no one seems to be taking very much notice of that. So I suppose any minute now we're going to be eating 3-headed fish. It's not a happy planet, and there are so many people trying to foment problems by inventing things they can profit from, like climate change and global warming and electric cars and the like. What are they going to do with the millions of tons of completely unrecyclable totally toxic waste disposing of the batteries of these cars. It will make every pollution problem we've had in the whole of the history of man look like a pinhead.
Okay, but what about Brexit, Greg? Because there have been some developments there, and we've literally got just 2 minutes left. So can you condense for us what's happening? Boris Johnson made an announcement yesterday. What's happening with Brexit? How will that affect the economy of Europe and the United Kingdom?
As I said in an article that I wrote yesterday, I'm glad to see Boris Johnson is getting his mojo back, having had a pretty prolonged battering from his personal case of COVID-19. And he is acting much more as the Boris Johnson who was elected, namely with 80-seat majority, which is a massive majority in the House of Commons, to enact Brexit. And if need be, it was made pretty damn clear, not only in the referendum, the largest single voting occasion in Britain's history, when the voters for Brexit outnumbered the voters against it by an undeniable majority, not a large one, but undeniable. And the British people want their sovereignty. We do not want to be a part of the corrupt, unelected committee dictatorship of the European Union, known by many in this country as the European Soviet, because it is so closely modeled on Russia. If we have to leave without a bespoke negotiated agreement, which Europe would appear to be very much against, they still want to make our laws for us. We don't want them to make our laws for us. They want to interfere and foment problems with Northern Ireland, which basically has nothing to do with them. They are encouraging Scotland on the basis of if they can encourage Scotland and encourage Northern Ireland and the Irish Republic, they will also be able to get the naive amongst the Welsh to clamour for some sort of independence, which at the end of the day is just a European ploy for divide and rule, and will be catastrophic for Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland if they decide to go it alone. It won't do England much good either, because breaking up the United Kingdom would be crass beyond belief. But Boris Johnson looks as if he is going to exercise his majority as he was voted into office to do and effect the final stage of Brexit on the 31st of December with or without a bespoke agreement. We will not be permitting the French and the Spanish to put factory ships into British waters to strip our fish for their profit. They are British waters, and we will not expect to enter into their waters and steal their fish either. We are separate entities. We will cooperate wherever possible on a reciprocal agreement with the rest of the European Union, where it is good for Britain and for them. But otherwise, no thank you. We're leaving on the 31st of December. We've already left the European Union, but the final agreement will be as at the 31st of December. If they don't actually act ethically at the negotiating table, so be it. We will take the consequences and we will make the most of it, and we will work with our friends like America, Australia, Canada, New Zealand, and the many other Anglosphere countries, and the many Commonwealth countries, and the many countries that we already trade with.
Thank you very much for that. I would have liked to have delved a bit more deeply on the impact on the global economies, but we haven't got time for that now. But in a nutshell, I think it's fair to say we're going to have some turbulence prior to the American election. Of course, the increasing number of lockdowns are also going to cause some potential chaos, not necessarily significant, but potential chaos in the markets, because the markets will try and predict the impact that any further lockdowns will have on trade. And with the Brexit negotiations at the moment now looking like they're under WTO rules, or will be, that too will cause some discomfort in equity markets. So would you perhaps agree that maybe we can expect to see equities suffer a little short term and maybe gold and silver or gold particularly rise? Or do you think the opposite will be the case? Just putting you on the spot for the next couple of months or so.
I think something that people overlook is that commerce, businesses, and economies can cope with challenges. The one thing they cannot cope with is uncertainty. And the uncertainty of the American issue will be resolving itself shortly after November the 3rd. The uncertainties of Brexit will have resolved themselves on the 31st of December. We are actually looking at a more stable platform going forwards. It may not be the platform anyone ideally wanted. It may be more challenging than they had wished, but challenge can be risen to. The one thing that is a nightmare commercially is uncertainty.
And on that note, Greg, we have to round it up there. Thank you very much.
My pleasure. Look forward to next time.
Indeed. And we'll be doing another discussion, but on the Richard and Greg channel tomorrow, if that's okay, Greg, on empires and dynasties.
Indeed. We must decide which one.
Indeed, we shall. Bye-bye for now.
Good night.
Okay, so tomorrow we shall publish episode 3 of our Peak Gold series, and on Wednesday provide a midweek financial update. But before we go, gold is currently up $7 at $1,906, and silver is up 41 cents at $24.59. So a good start to the week, while equity markets remain broadly unchanged or little changed. Please, by all means, share your thoughts below, and thank you so much for listening. And if you haven't already done so, kindly subscribe to our channel, not forgetting to press the bell sign so that you're notified of our videos as and when they're published. And for those who haven't visited our Richard and Greg channel, we've placed a link to that one also in the description box below. So until tomorrow. We hope you have found this video interesting and informative, and if so, please give it a thumbs up and share it on social media. Please ensure that you have subscribed to our channel and press the bell sign so that you are notified of any future videos. Also, kindly visit our website at illuminatisilver.com, and if you haven't already done so, please subscribe either as a free or paying member for regular email updates and offers. Disclaimer. Illuminati Silver owners come from a background of banking, international wealth management and economics. Having now retired from these worlds, we are not qualified to give investment advice. Therefore, this and other productions must not be deemed to be giving such advice and merely represent the personal views of its owners.